Hey guys, welcome back to Thriving in Love podcast, the podcast that challenges the status quo so couples can thrive as their most authentic selves. Today on the show, I am so freaking excited to introduce Catherine Drysdale. She is a sex and relationship coach and also the founder of Your Pleasure Path. Catherine, welcome. I'm so excited to get into this episode. Thanks for
Thank
being
you so
here.
much. I'm so excited. I think I came across you from Natasha's podcast and I was like, oh my God, I need to be in your world. So I'm so happy everything aligned so quickly too.
No, as soon as I saw what your platform is sharing, it's like I've seen a lot of people talking about like pleasure and intimacy and things like that are like, here's some like sex toys or intimacy things that you can like add to the bedroom. But what you're doing is like next level shit. It's like deeper. It's more about like, let's get to the root of our shit so that we can unlock even more pleasure. It's not
hmm
like surface level shit. It's like deep. Like, and
Yeah,
I and I'm so curious to hear your journey. Like, why
yeah,
you decided to go that route?
no, totally. Yeah, so I mean, part of why I go so deep in everything is because I've had such a challenging journey to get to where I am now. So, like, go way back in the past. Like, I'm someone who started having sex really early. I was like 14 when I started having sex, and there was some trauma put in there. Like, the whole school found out 4 hours after it happened. I was going to boarding school at the time, and my roommate told on
Oh,
me. So it was like gossip everywhere. I was slut shamed like most women
oh
are, most
my
young women are,
God.
but there was also elements of like religious shame in there too, where my punishment, which is was to speak to the school priest and tell him
Mm.
what happened, and then I had to tell my parents, and then I was forced to go on birth control without my consent. So
Oh
there
my
was
God.
lots of levels of like shame and trauma within there, just within my own like sexual debut. It should be something that's like super
Totally.
exciting, but it wasn't. I was going to boarding school too, so there were lots of elements with that, but I still was someone who was explorative. That first relationship that I had was a non-monogamous relationship before I knew exactly what that was. And then fast forward to college, I unfortunately experienced sexual trauma when I was a sophomore in college on my college campus. And
Fuck.
during the time, like I didn't have the tools, the resources in order to heal like I needed to. I did everything right. I reported it. I was trying to pursue legal action, but I was told that I wouldn't get the justice that I deserved, so I dropped it. And so I did what most survivors do is let me put it in a tiny little box in the back of my head and try to forget about it until later or hopefully never, right? A lot of us hope that
Totally.
like we just like don't have the tools, we don't have the coping, we don't have the resources to deal with it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I just did what so many people did, and I was like, I want to live my life as normally as I can. I want to have a normal college experience. I don't want this trauma to define me. So let's just like move on and pretend like it didn't happen. Then fast forward to when I was working in entertainment. That was my dream job after college. I did publicity for film, and it slowly realized that it wasn't everything it's cracked up to be, right? Like entertainment,
Of
the glitz,
course.
the glamour, but I was working like 100-hour weeks, so burnt out, barely making any money, had no life. And then the Me Too movement started, where I was
Mm.
becoming re-triggered by that. I watched the show 13 Reasons Why, not realizing that there was depictions of like actual rape scene in there. And so that sort of fueled, I had a complete mental breakdown where I had to leave my job. And I was like suicidal at that point. I was almost debating going to inpatient treatment because
Yeah.
3 times a week with my therapist wasn't enough. And
Yeah.
so at that time, this was like 5 years after my sexual assault, where my subconscious mind decided, bitch, now is the time where you have to heal. Like, we're not putting it in a box anymore. You have to
Mhm.
face it. And so that's what I did. So my only priority was trying to figure out, like, can I be happy again? What's my purpose in life? There has to be more meaning in this. So I was going to see my therapist, finally working through this shit. I started working out, working with a personal trainer. I went back to school and I took some digital marketing classes thinking I wanted to get
Wow.
an MBA. And while I was in this personal branding class, funny enough, I was trying to make my dog Instagram famous. Um,
Love
like
that.
Loki, where is she? She's back here.
Weren't
She's
we
sleeping.
all?
Yeah. The first night of class, the professor said there's a difference between having influence and having impact. And that was the light
Mm,
bulb moment that I needed to be like, okay, maybe you should stop spending 4 hours a day on your dog's Instagram and like, let's actually make positive impact in the world. And that's when I
wow.
realized, like, okay, all of the trauma, all of the pain, all of the bullshit that I've experienced in my life, like, the reason why this happened is I'm supposed to help other people go through their journey and hopefully have it not take as much time as it did for me, right? And
Yeah.
so that's sort of been ingrained in my mission. And that's when I realized I wanted to become a coach. So I enrolled in my first life coaching certification. I did more traditional life coaching for my first like year or so of coaching while I was still working through like my own trauma healing
For
so that I
sure.
could get to the point where I could actually hold space for people in the way that I wanted to. I became certified in something called Neurolinguistic Programming, NLP, hypnosis, emotional freedom technique. I'm also Reiki certified, but it's not something I advertise anymore.
That's
Um,
amazing.
I'm very woo woo. I'm very into sort of embodiment and somatics. And I'm also
Yes.
into like psychology and understanding how the brain works. And so through going through my various levels of certification, like it's now been about 3 years where I've focused and like doubled down on sex and relationships completely. And what I realized is that like there's a huge gap between like how we think of trauma and what actually needs to be done in order to heal it. And what's not shared a lot is that there's studies that show that traditional talk therapy can actually be damaging for people who have experienced trauma and people who've
Yes.
experienced PTSD. And that's why there's been a rise in so many other types of like healing modalities like EMDR, somatic therapy, and then NLP. And so
Right.
NLP, that's sort of like my bread and butter. I love it. And the reason why is like I'm able to help people who feel like they have not had any progress in therapy. Like they're doing the work, they're trying the tools, and they're like, why am I still feeling broken? Why am I still hurting? And
Yep.
NLP like is the tool that's able to help them so that they're not carrying the weight of the burden of this trauma any longer.
Could we just quickly go into what NLP is and like why, how it's so impactful?
Totally. Yeah. So NLP, also known as neurolinguistic programming, it uses hypnotic language to speak to the subconscious mind, but you are fully conscious and awake and aware for it. And the reason why I prefer this to hypnosis is that I feel like there takes a level of trust to get to the point where you're comfortable with someone giving you hypnotic language. You want to be able to trust your practitioner, whether it's me, whether that's
Mm,
someone else. But the reason why I particularly like it with supporting clients with trauma is we utilize this tool called time techniques. It uses your timeline therapy. So we're able to go back in time to the moment where something traumatic occurred, or maybe it's releasing a limiting belief or a very heavy and stuck emotion. And we're able to go back to the moment where it happened without feeling the emotions that are present because we
mhm.
intentionally disassociate by several levels so that you're almost becoming an observer of it, and you don't necessarily need to see what's happening in order for your subconscious to heal and learn the lessons for you to move on from it. And this technique is something that's like very quick, rapid results for my clients. Like we do it within one single session. Typically, it takes like anywhere from like 20 to like 90 minutes in order to complete this technique and heal things. Obviously, with different degrees of trauma, like that journey is going to look different for everyone. And there's so much that
Totally.
builds upon it. But we're able to heal stuff like that with NLP, which is not something you can do in really anything else that I see out there.
Okay, that's insane. So I am very woo-woo. I'm a psychic, and I do
Oh,
that without even knowing what I'm doing.
hell
Like I'm
yeah.
able to like freaking take the person. I ask them like what are they going through, right? And then what I'm able to do like intuitively is just see where that root started of that emotion we can talk through it and allow the person to fully feel the full spectrum of emotions, not just like anger, not just sadness, but like the depth of the emotion of like, okay, yes, I'm feeling angry, but I'm also really sad for the version of me that did that. And like we talk through all of that and not just
Mhm.
talk, but like move the body, do the Reiki, do the energy healing and all of
Mhm.
that. And literally like like nip it in the bud of like get to the root, nip it in the bud so that they feel so much freer
Yeah.
energetically in their entire body.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
wild.
When I was going through the NLP certification like a few years ago, I realized like because first I started with more of like a spiritual lens to my coaching, and I've
Yeah.
also done like Akashic records and stuff like that.
Yes.
But it's interesting. It's like there can be so many different pathways that lead us to the same kind of healing, whether you want to
Yeah.
take that more spiritual approach or a subconscious approach. But either way, it has to take us out of our current present conscious mind
Yeah.
in order to experience that healing. And with time techniques and timeline therapy too, bringing in a little bit more of the woo woo, like we sometimes have this trauma, limiting beliefs, heavy emotions. Sometimes the root is in our lifetime, but it can also be past life,
Yes.
and it can also be
Yes.
generational.
Ancestral.
Yep,
Yes.
yep, yep.
Okay, so why did you choose to go through like the non-woo-woo path?
I mean,
Which I think is important.
I'm still
Yeah.
pretty woo woo, but I just
Yeah.
realized I'm like, for like my mission, I want to support so many people in healing
Yeah.
trauma and experiencing the pleasure that they deserve and desire. Like, that's
Mm.
my overall mission. I feel
Yes.
like it's less of a challenge to get people to understand like this is rooted in psychology and here's how it
Right.
works versus
Mhm.
this is some spiritual practice, and like there's a
Yeah.
little bit more
There's
of a
so
barrier of
much
entry
trauma
there.
in that alone. Yeah, exactly. And I agree where it's like you're still doing all of like the spiritual stuff behind the scenes on your own, but in like front facing it,
Hmm.
to fit into this 3D world,
Yeah.
you are bringing them in the door through that and doing it using 3D modalities, but deeper than that, you are doing using your
Hmm.
psychic gifts.
Yeah, and like I will say with that too, like I'm very much a coach and practitioner that doesn't do everything like by the book. I'm like very important. Like
Mm,
to me, it's very important to have like integrity with what I do. So I'm like certified in more things than I need to be. I'm board
right.
certified, so I go do my continued education every single year. But I will say, like, I don't follow the script. So I use
Yeah.
my intuitive abilities to help me guide through the sessions. Like, what does my client actually need? And sometimes we'll be in the middle of an NLP technique and maybe it's not quite working the way that it was intended. So, okay, like instead of in this moment, maybe we're going back to something that happened with your inner child. Let's step into the picture and now integrate with inner child healing within there and have a
Yeah.
moment with your inner child. Or sometimes I've had clients where we've also done timeline with like the generational trauma. So with your mom, with your grandma, and have an integrated moment within there. And sometimes I'll do some Reiki energy work also if it's like very heavy emotion. So I still integrate the woo woo. It's just not something that I feel like I outwardly advertise more
I think it's
often.
smart. I think that's really smart. Yeah. I mean, yes. Again, like I was saying earlier before we started this show, that I just love the way you have built your personal brand because it's like, you're right. Like, how can we use our intuitive, spiritual, woo woo gifts to help more people, right? There's so much like religion trauma, witch wounds, this and that. And just like, like it's tough. It's so tough right
Hmm.
now. I'm kind of on a mission to really ground spirituality and like make it more so like not woo woo, something that people actually need to embrace and activate in every single human so that we can become whole, right? Like mind, body,
Hmm.
soul. You are all of it. So like I'm trying to figure out a way to like make that more mainstream. Like I'm like Gabby Bernstein started the mainstream of like manifestation and I'm like, okay, I'm
Hmm.
going to take them to shadow work. I'm going to take
Hmm.
them deeper.
Yeah.
I'm going to take them to the depths of their soul so we can fucking alchemize deep ass shit, you know?
Hell yeah.
So,
No, I love that. And I feel like with that too, like at least for my journey, it came to where like I had a fork in the road, and like I was passionate about both of these things, like, and not just like the psychology element, but I had this fork in the road where I needed to pick, do I want to go all in on spirituality, or do I want to go all in on sexuality? And
I think
how do
that's
I
where I
do
am right
that?
now.
Yeah, and I made the ultimate decision to go all in on sexuality because I ended up doing a past life regression with one of my friends, and so we went to one of my past lives where I was a sex priestess in
Fuck
Marrakesh.
yeah.
And that was sort of like the confirmation that I needed to be like, okay, like I'm called to this path because I've done it before, and now
Mm,
it's happening in this lifetime because I have the resources, I have the tools, and I have the platform to do that. And so this goes beyond any, like, spirituality sure is part of it, but it goes beyond that. It's like I have the ability to support so many people in healing so much like sexual shame and like experiencing pleasure, like that is liberation. And I was like, that's just like,
I
it was a
agree.
no-brainer. So I'm like, let's go all in on this shit.
Fuck, that's so epic and so amazing. Like, talk about soul fucking purpose. Talk about a calling. Talk about like using all of your past pain wounding, understanding, connecting those dots, and being like, oh, like, not that I'm grateful for my trauma. I hate that. I hate when people are like, no, no, no. But yes, we can accept it and we can use it. We can use it to fuel our fucking fire. So,
Mm-hmm.
love all of that. But I am going to pivot real quick because
Totally.
you are here and I want to like get to the juicy stuff
Yes,
of pleasure. Like, why are couples disconnected when it comes to pleasure? Where are the differences? There's something on your website you said like the pleasure gap. So let's dive into that.
totally. I think overall with pleasure, if we think about how we're taught about sex, if we're lucky enough to have been taught about sex at all, right? Typically, we're
Right.
taught about sex very heterocentric viewpoint of penis and vagina. It's very like when the man comes, then it's finished. We're not taught
Hmm.
about female anatomy. We're not taught that the clitoris, the whole purpose, the whole function is pleasure. We're not taught that foreplay should be a non negotiable. So when we're taught about sex, if we are in, sex ed in high school, or sometimes it's like learning about it through personal experience or friends or porn. Porn, I'm not a hater of porn. I love porn. I think it can be a great tool, but porn is entertainment. It's not education. And so I think
Mm.
there's huge disconnects with like what we're taught about pleasure. And if we even infuse sort of what we see in like mainstream media, like film and TV, we're taught that sex is supposed to be this magical thing where everyone comes at the same time, and like honestly, like 99% of the time that does not happen, right?
Yeah. Right.
We're not seeing like the laughter, we're not seeing like the queefing, we're not seeing like all these like little moments of like joy and pleasure. And I think part of why that is like, yes, we're not taught that pleasure is important, but I think so much of the time we treat sex or masturbation or self pleasure, however you define it, as something that we just need to like get done and get there as quickly as possible. And like, I
Hmm.
know for me in my own journey for so many years, I was just chasing the O, and I needed it for stress relief. And I wanted to just come as quickly as possible. I was feeling so disconnected from my body. I was feeling so disconnected from my partner.
Yeah.
And even though I was having like a good enough time, it wasn't really truly enjoyable. And I think
Yeah.
that truly is like the biggest problem that we face when we're in a relationship, is a lot of us also too can struggle with anxiety. And I think as women, like, because we're not taught that our pleasure matters, and maybe our partner does want to go down on us or have foreplay, but we're in our heads thinking like, wow, this is taking too long. Like, do I smell? Are they bored? Like, what's happening? Or maybe you're feeling frustrated, like you're enjoying like penetration, but you're not able to come that way. So I think the biggest
Mhm.
misconception is like we're taught in all of these things that we're supposed to be able to come that way. And only 18% of women have an orgasm from penetration alone without any
Wow.
clitoral stimulation. And like, that's huge. And like, I share this fact all of the
Yeah.
time. And every single time I get women in the comments like, wow, like I feel less alone. Like I didn't know that. And
Yeah.
I think focusing more on that clitoral stimulation is important, whether that's, a toy, whether that's a hand, whether that's a mouth, whatever kind of sensation. And I think giving yourself permission to take time. But I think
Mm.
also, like, the biggest challenge is because we're all so focused on getting to a destination, that gets us more in our heads and out of our body. And we often feel like we're not able to communicate our needs to our partners because of some of this anxiety. And so I truly believe, like, to close the pleasure gap, I think it's only about like 60% of women experience orgasm with a man. And
That is
so,
insane.
and that's just like versus 90, I think it's like 96% of men experience an orgasm with a woman. So it's like the orgasm
Wow.
gap is huge. And there's so many
Yes.
reasons why that exists. But like, part of that really is like reclaiming pleasure as your own. And that's why with my clients, I teach pleasure as a self discovery journey. Like, oftentimes, we get into this rut where once we find something that works, we do it the exact same way, the same hands, the same vibrator, the same lube, the same whatever stimulus we use to like get us in the mood. And we do it the same way as quickly as possible. And it sometimes is the same way for like 20 years.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
what helps us experience more of that pleasure is slowing it down. It's bringing that mindfulness into it. It's utilizing something called like pleasure mapping. It's exploring other erogenous zones. And really, like, when you don't focus on the orgasm, that is what allows the orgasm to happen.
That's so fascinating because I feel like I've like, when you're like on the tip of the iceberg of this conversation, I feel like you just like flooded me into the depths of it.
I tend to have that
Like,
effect on people.
that's so insane about like okay, you touched on so many things there that I want to go into. So let's talk about pleasure mapping first because
Yeah.
how can we create the safe container for ourselves to even begin a practice of pleasure mapping and understanding our bodies and our sensuality and our sexuality beyond what like that 20-year thing like we're used to doing? Like how can we go
hmm
deeper?
Yeah, so pleasure mapping, I'd say if we look at it like overall, it's essentially creating a map of your own body and exploring pleasurable sensations that feel good. And the goal is not to get to orgasm. The goal is to let ourselves slow down enough just to feel something different. This can be using just your hands if you want to, just
Yeah.
feeling like your fingertips brush upon different areas of your body. Maybe you want to feel the sensation of like harder with your nails or use other tools. Like, it doesn't even have to be sex toys. It can be like the back of your hairbrush and the bristles. You can use feathers. You can use different
Mm,
sensations, different textures. So it's like infusing kind of that
that's cool.
sensuality into that, and just like maybe set a timer for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes if you're feeling like really generous with yourself. And just like try different areas of your body and just like take note. Okay, well, my breast on, the right side underneath, this is very sensitive, and that's not an area that I've spent much time with before. Maybe I'll try to infuse more there later. Or maybe you notice like I'm really sensitive and like kind of ticklish, like in my like waist area or behind your knees. So it's like places of your body that like aren't inherently seen as like sexual can be total centers for like eroticism. But the
Mm.
problem is we don't slow down enough to give ourselves that permission. And
And
so,
isn't that so mirrored in our life?
mhm,
Like, I'm gonna take it back to spirituality real quick because I just have to. But like, how we're always like, oh, destination focused, like, oh, I need to reach an evolution versus like the entire point and purpose and the magic is in the journey.
mhm,
Like slow
uh,
down, enjoy the journey, like to watch what's going on, smell the roses, connect with nature, connect with earth, connect, right? And it's like, oh, that's
100%.
so like, I love this because it's like that's where I started. And now I feel like I'm entering this new arena with people like you and just like bringing you guys on to my show because my soul is being asked, is like asking me to like, okay, now you did all that with the world. Now let's go deeper and do it with your like own body, like your own
Hmm.
vessel. Like this is the body we chose. Why are we not allowing ourselves to like fully enjoy the fullness of our bodies?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to, societal conditioning and like what we're taught as women, we're taught that we need to be so many different versions of ourselves in order to please everyone else. And I think it's like,
Mm,
it's almost
yeah.
like an act of rebellion to give yourself permission to like be that sensual creature, right? To put yourself
Mm,
first. Like, I know self-care is such like a pop culture word, right? But a lot of us think self care is, bubble baths, having your aesthetic workout fit, like going to get your nails done. But like self care actually is like learning how to set boundaries and prioritizing yourself and slowing the fuck down. And like we
yeah.
really have to allow ourselves to do that. And so that's why, like, I think practicing mindfulness is like so, so important with this. And also connecting back to the breath. Like it's so simple, yet it's so
Yeah.
challenging for so many of us to get to the point where we sort of eliminate the distractions that are out in the world and just give ourselves like this intention to fully be with ourselves.
Amazing. Love that. Okay. Mindfulness and slowing the fuck down and feeling all of the areas on our body and seeing where are our personal erotic zones so we can learn ourselves and share those things in bed to connect deeper with a partner. Is that a
100%.
good
Yeah.
summary of that?
Yes.
Okay.
And I will say too, with that, pleasure mapping can feel different when it's solo versus with a partner too. So you might
Ooh.
do this practice yourself, maybe once, maybe several times, and you might find sensations that feel good by yourself. But maybe when you're with your partner, you can do this on each other, maybe one at a time, taking turns. I feel like so hot. But you might find that with a partner, there's other areas of your body that feel more erotic. And if you're wanting support with understanding pleasure mapping too, I actually have a workshop coming up on the 19th that's called Unlocking Pleasure, and it combines the NLP with the pleasure mapping. So we're going to do some trauma
Amazing.
healing, and then we're going to experience the sensation of pleasure in our body.
That's incredible. I am going to drop the links below for anyone who wants to
Yes.
sign up for that. I'm definitely going to be there because I
Hell
am
yeah.
so obsessed.
And I think I set up a 20% off code for all of your listeners too for any of my
Yes.
programs and courses. So
So,
yeah,
so
definitely
grateful for
check that
that.
out.
Definitely going to drop all that below. Okay, so let's dive into sex magic. What is it? How can we do it? What does the process look like?
Totally. So sex magic, I think, is my personal like favorite way to manifest, but essentially it uses the power of pleasure and the power of your orgasms to help fuel your desires. And the reason why it works is if you think about, if you're someone who practices mindfulness or maybe meditates, and you might be someone who manifests already, you might notice that in order for you to get to that state where you're really magnetic and you're really attracting the things that you want, it's kind of like that higher vibration, right? You want to feel really good. Some people are able to access some of this energy after like working out, like the euphoria that happens after you have a really good workout or a run or a spin class. But when you use pleasure as the source of this energy, it truly just allows things to come in like times 10. And so the reason why is if you think about just the sensation, the energy behind pleasure, pleasure and orgasm is creation energy.
Hmm.
When
Right.
we're having
That's how babies
sex,
are born.
exactly. So it's like when we're having sex or like having pleasure or having orgasm, this is the potential to create life within this moment. So why wouldn't we use this energy to create life to fuel our manifestations and everything that we desire? And sex magic to me like is a great tool. It's something you can do totally by yourself or with a partner. And I feel like when you do it with a partner, this has the potential to like make things even even grander, like times 10, times 100. And the intention
Yes.
behind it is that you're supposed to have very, very clear intention on what exactly you're trying to bring into the world. Now, you can go through it with like a specific goal setting, like I have this specific goal, or maybe your partner and you like want to manifest this house, or maybe you're trying to grow things in your business, or you're wanting opportunities. It doesn't really matter exactly what it is. The purpose is having that very clear intention. And as you're experiencing that pleasure, whether that's through like self pleasure and masturbation or with your partner and your experience, keep that intention top of mind as you're experiencing that pleasure and coming closer and closer to climax. And the more you focus on the intention, the more it's able to fuel that energy towards what you desire. Now, when it comes to sex magic, I also like within my own personal like orgasmic manifesting practice, I like to say like affirmations to myself,
Mm.
like I am everything I need. I am loved unconditionally. Like I am creating massive impact in the world. And like I'll say these things as I'm rubbing my clit, right? I'm like,
That's
yes,
amazing.
everything is working out for me. Like I'm exactly where I need to be. And this just allows me to like feel even better in my body. And then to take it one step further, I'm gonna show you this a little. I have I don't know if you can see a vision board
Yeah.
here.
Oh my gosh.
So
Amazing.
this, when I did this, I think it was like a year or so ago. Similar thing. I was feeling disconnected from my audience because when we're an online creator, it's like you're on a screen, but it's so hard to see the other people behind you. And I was feeling like I wanted to feel connected to the people who are in my community. So
Yes.
I intuitively got the download to make a vision board, but different than others. And I literally just cut out pictures of women in magazines, put it up on the wall, and I will look at that as I'm masturbating, and that's what allowed me to go viral. I think I like gained 130,000 followers within 30 days after doing this sex magic
Holy
practice with myself.
shit.
Yeah. Yeah. So it works.
That's fucking
It
incredible.
works.
Okay, so I know sex magic works because my
Yeah.
husband and I have tried it, but we haven't like I love that you like went so like clear into like how to do it properly. I think we did it unintentionally just because we're both been doing this whole like sacred union healing journey.
Hmm.
And we're like so like getting so connected energetically. So like we manifested his fucking dream job together.
Hell
We
yeah. Hell
manifested
yeah.
becoming investment property owners just like that. Like
Hell
we
yeah.
just like are doing it, but now I'm so excited to get so intentional about like okay, what are we manifesting next and like so my question for you is it I've been reading on this on like the Taoism of it
Hmm.
all and what they say is it's best to not reach orgasm. But I'm like, this is like ancient wisdom. I don't know if we're still doing that in modern times. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, like, here's what I have to say about that. Whatever you do, like, just know that we're able to take what resonates, leave what doesn't, right? So if reaching
Yeah.
orgasm feels good for you, great, do it. If not reaching orgasm doesn't feel good for you, that's fine too. I know within like tantric principles, there's a difference
Right.
between female orgasm and male orgasm. So female
Mm,
orgasm is actually a good thing to experience orgasm. And we as women, we have the capacity for so much pleasure and we're able to be multi-orgasmic. Like I
right.
experience multiple orgasms. I can do it with
Same.
just breath
Yes.
work alone with no touching anything. Which
Wow.
yeah, which is like so cool when
I've been
I learned
trying
that.
that and I haven't gotten to, oh, yeah, but I'm
It
trying.
yeah, it was by accident when I found that out. I was in a breathwork workshop in Tulum actually, and I had I think like 5 in a row without touching anything, and I was kind of
That's
embarrassed because I
so
was like,
fucking
I'm
cool.
surrounded by people, like, oh no, but like it just
Who
like unlocked,
cares?
and
Yeah.
I had the release that I needed when normally the release is crying, but yeah, when it comes to whether or not you should orgasm, I mean, it's totally up to you. But like as women, we have this capacity for so much pleasure. So I find that it's better if you're able to connect to that orgasm, connect to pleasure and feel that. And then some of the principles within like tantric principles for like men is that actually some practices believe that for men, they actually are able to sort of like reintegrate their creation energy by not coming. And so it allows you to plant the seed back into your body and use that as creative energy. And so when you release your
Interesting.
seed, it should be with the specific intention of like the manifestation of connection. And so, like, actually edging is supposed to be really good for that and also for like lasting longer and having like a better time in the bedroom.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about edging. What is that?
Yeah, so edging essentially is when you go really, really close, you try to go really, really close to orgasm and then you release. You just like hands off, stop touching. And then you go really, really
Mm,
close and then you just like stay back. And so the reason why edging is like so popular is because like number one, it really helps like men last longer in bed. And the reason why is because you're prolonging the time between ejaculation. So like we are saying with most people masturbating, right? We find the way that works and we try to get there as quickly as possible. When you're edging, this allows you to tap into those pleasure centers and experience that without going over the edge, so to speak. And so
got
edging
it.
can be
Yeah.
something that you do just within like one session, like one afternoon. You're like, I'm going to edge myself for like 20 minutes right now, and then I'm going to let myself come after that. Or it could be throughout the whole day. Like maybe you masturbate a little bit in the morning, or you're with your partner in the afternoon, but like you don't come yet. And like maybe in the evening, you're like, I'm like storing all this energy and like I'm gonna explode on you later tonight and it's gonna be so hot. Like it can be throughout the day, it can be
That's
throughout the
fucking
week.
awesome. Yeah.
Everyone's practice with it can be totally different, but I think edging is a huge way to help like build connection and build eroticism because you're not doing what is you're designed to do. You're not
Right.
releasing quite then.
That's so cool. And it really is about like taking our power back, right? From the entire process of just having sex. It's like you can take it to that next level consciously. It's a conscious
Hmm.
sex almost, which is so fucking cool. Are there any practices or modalities that you do with your partner that are just a way for you guys to be more connected, a way for you guys to do this sex magic together?
Yeah, I think within partnership and like connecting in the bedroom, I think it's so important to sort of like have that shared intention set before you're like getting into the bedroom. It's the same thing
Yeah.
with like I like to have with my partners. It's sort of like aftercare, but like before care. So it's like what are you wanting out of this experience? Like, are you wanting to have sex? Are you just wanting to have like oral? Like what's something that you want to create in the world and like how do you want to connect to me and vice versa. So it's I think having that prior conversation is really important and then having that shared intention like okay this is something that we are creating together, this is what we're wanting to birth into the world, and like how
Yeah.
can we use this moment together to expand both of our lives, right? And I think it's so important when you're on the same page and you have that same intention and that shared vision. That's what allows stuff to come into your life like faster and faster and faster.
Totally. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Um, let's go into like creativity. So, real quick, like, why do you think that getting into creative flow, do you have like a practice of getting into creative flow through your pleasure practice?
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, so I will say like I'm a morning masturbator and I know most people are not. And I used to be like so many people where I would masturbate at nighttime to go to sleep, but I realized I was like, but I actually wasn't getting tired when I do that. So then I would be up
Mm,
super late and I would always be like on my computer typing away right after. And I realized I was like, oh, wait, having an orgasm gives me energy. It gives me all this creative energy. Why don't I do it earlier in the day? And so when I
mm,
started to shift that and realize like within like my morning routine, my morning practice, I will like wake up, I'll walk my dog, I'll make breakfast, have coffee, I'll take a shower, and then I like to get back in bed after I've taken a shower, after I feel clean. That's where I do my orgasmic practice is like, saying those affirmations. Sometimes I'll listen to like a fire like playlist of like pop women, like powerful women. Sometimes it's like chakra healing frequency. Sometimes it's something else. Sometimes I'll like look at my vision board. Sometimes I'll say affirmations to myself. But like, really, the intention is like not to get there as quickly as possible, right? It's to slow down, connect to my body, and explore like what sensation feels good. Sometimes I won't come at all if that's not what's feeling aligned for me. And like, that's totally
Right.
okay too. But I think also too, I used to have like this daily practice where I would do it every single day. And over the last like year or so, I learned to be a little bit more mindful in that and allowing myself, it's either a full body fuck yes or it's a no. And so I
Yeah.
give myself the ability to consent even to my own self pleasure. And like, if I don't want to do it, I won't do it. And so it allows me to continue to build that like self autonomy and be able to express my needs with partners even more. Because it's like, if we're doing things that we don't want to do just because we know the end result is going to give us what we want, like that's still taking us out and away from our
Yeah.
power. And so I think it's
Yeah.
really important to be mindful in that. Like, even though I love pleasure, I love how it makes me feel afterwards. Like, most of the time, it ends up being good. But if I'm not in the mood, I'm not in the mood, and that's perfectly okay. But I think ultimately giving myself permission to have it look differently, whether it's use toys, different lubes, different sensations, different things that I'm doing, and just explore pleasure and whatever feels good for you. And then what I'll do is that's when after that I will like get up and I typically will like channel and I'm an automatic writer. So I will just like speak to my higher self, my
Same.
spirit guides, and I'm like, okay,
Yes.
let's tappity tap tap. What are the creative ideas that I have right now and put them like pen to paper. In my case, I don't like writing. I'm writing because my wrist
You
hurts.
type it.
So
Yeah.
I type it. And then
That
that's
is
when I
fucking
will do my
magical.
content after.
That's so fucking epic. Like, I wish women knew, everybody, men, women, non binary, I wish every single human on this planet knew that they are a channel and that there is a way to nurture their intuitive gifts and capabilities to open up and clear that channel so that they can receive that creative juice flow to do the work that they came here to do. And I think that is how we find our purpose, right? Is like
A
what is
hundred
coming
percent.
as clearly as it can. That's so fucking epic.
Yeah.
Amazing. And it activates your power, right?
Totally,
Like, yeah.
totally.
And
Yeah. And like I'll think of like days where I don't do it, or maybe I'm feeling a little off because I'm human. We all are human. And sometimes I like feel like, oh, I have all of these million things that I should do, and like this is what my logical brain tells me I need to be doing. But there's a huge difference and a huge shift when I operate my life and like strategize my day based on what's coming through intuitively, what's like a sacral yes. And like, I don't know if you're into like human design, like I'm a
yes, super.
generator, so it's like I will have all of the energy in the world to do something that's a full body fuck yes. But if it's not a full body fuck yes, it's like pulling
Mhm.
teeth out. It's nails on the chalkboard. I don't want to do it. I shut down. And so when we allow ourselves to tap into like our pleasure and allow that to sort of like focus your day, there's so much more that's accessible to you.
I'm a projector, so anything that I do is like pulling teeth because I just want to rest and like indulge and like watch.
I love it. I love
I'm
it.
like, oh, I'll work 3 hours a day, and I'm like, that's a good, successful day for me.
Yeah. Well,
'Cause I'm very creative.
leisure is my favorite activity, but it took me a long time to get to this point where like I felt comfortable just like resting and like not doing anything. Like I
It took
love to
me,
just like
yeah,
lounge.
it took me 5 years to heal hustle culture out of my body. Like a long,
Yeah.
slow process, and it just like feels so good to be able to take a bath in middle of the day without guilt now. And
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just like, wow, I've
huge.
come such a long way. It's
That's
insane.
huge.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here. How can my audience find you? How can they connect with you? I am going to drop your links below, but what
Okay,
is your best way
perfect.
to connect
Yeah,
with
so I am on TikTok and Instagram. My handle is at I am Catherine Drysdale. It's CATHERINE DRYSDALE. Or you can find me online at yourpleasurepath.com.
Amazing. And what are some projects you have coming up that you'd like to share?
Yeah. So First thing that's coming up is that workshop that I mentioned before called Unlocking Pleasure. That's combining sort of like NLP time techniques to heal trauma so that you can experience the pleasure that you desire. And we're going to be going through a pleasure mapping exercise, like live on the call. This is like for women. That's the intention so that you can help feel more connected to your bodies, to your pleasure. And then I have an upcoming group program called Inside Out that will be starting on the 20th, and this is going to be a 30-day container. And it's designed to help you sort of cultivate those feelings of like authentic self love with yourself. So, we're going to be going through some of these subconscious healing tools like NLP, like hypnosis, like EFT tapping, like meditation, giving you all of these tangible tools that you can do on a daily basis, combined with the community element. So being surrounded by other like badass women who are also on this journey, who want to feel good in their bodies, connect back to yourself, and like experience the love, the relationship, the intimacy that you desire, because you're able to love yourself like fully and unconditionally.
Which I think is crucial, like, for me at least. I wish people could understand this because I remember when I, like, heard it at first, I was like, "Oh, love yourself before you can feel loved by others." And it never clicked until I really realized that, like, it's like a journey. Like, the more love you unlock within yourself, it mirrors back to you in your external reality in so many different miraculous ways. So, like, I really want to plant the seed into all of our listeners today. The love that you give to yourself unlocks more love that you can receive from the
Mhm.
external world. So, if you guys are excited and feeling good and feel that fuck yes energy of like wanting to connect deeper with your self-love and going deeper into that love, check out Catherine's world. It is incredible. It has ignited
Oh,
me on a whole nother level, and I am so fucking grateful for your existence and your presence and your energy. Thank you.
oh, thank you. Oh, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you. Ah.